What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2024 schedule preview and projected record series. The Baylor Bears up next, coming off of a very disappointing season, just 3-9, and the schedule really wasn't that bad. Remember, they lost to Texas State. They did play Utah in the non-conference, but you look at who they played in the Big 12. They did play Texas, but they didn't have to play Oklahoma. So, I mean, it wasn't a terrible schedule. They didn't play Oklahoma State either, and still just 3-9. You look at this schedule in 2024, and we're going to break it down first, looking at the non-conference. They'll play Tarleton State, at Utah, and Air Force. Yes, I know Utah is part of the Big 12 now, but that was scheduled before they joined the conference. They're letting them keep that game, but it will not count in the conference standings. So that technically is a non-conference game. And I forgot the other one. There's another one that they're doing that with as well. So yeah, Utah is actually a non-conference game. What's interesting is the fact that they play Utah on the road, a non-conference game, and they still only gave them 4 conference games at home. Usually if you play your non-conference game on the road, they give you 5 home games and 4 road games. But they have only 4 home games in the Big 12, which means they'll have 6 home games and 6 road games, which is, again, not the norm for a power conference team. But Tarleton State and Air Force, yes. And then BYU, Oklahoma State, TCU, and Kansas. That's the home schedule. Oklahoma State and Kansas is going to be pretty tough. BYU and TCU, winnable games, but none of those will be easy wins for a team like Baylor. You look at the road schedule: at Utah, at Colorado, at Iowa State, at Texas Tech, at West Virginia, and at Houston. That's going to be a tough stretch. I mean, there are no easy wins there. And really in the Big 12, there are no easy wins. Maybe Cincinnati, if you get Cincinnati, especially at home, that might be an easier win. But everyone else is at least pretty good in the Big 12. And so this will be a pretty tough schedule with the 6 road games. And Utah, again, a Big 12 team, even though it's not a conference game, but 6 road games against Big 12 teams. And so they'll start with Tarleton State on August 31st, and it's on the road at Utah on September 7th. Air Force on the 14th, then they'll play at Colorado on September 21st, and then BYU on the 28th. Still no bye week. It's a while before you get to their first bye week. They play at Iowa State on October the 5th. Then they get their first bye week before playing Texas Tech on the 19th on the road. Back-to-back road games, but there is a bye week in there. They play Oklahoma State on November 26th at home, and then TCU on November 2nd at home. And then they'll get their other bye week before going on the road to play West Virginia on November 16th. And then it's at Houston on the 23rd, and close things out with Kansas on the 30th. So yeah, West Virginia and Houston back-to-back road games there. Iowa State and Texas Tech back-to-back, but there is a bye week in between. It's going to be a pretty tough schedule. You're talking about having to play Utah and Oklahoma State, even though Utah is not a conference game. But Utah and Oklahoma State might be the best 2 teams in this conference next year. They don't have to play Arizona, but they do have to play West Virginia, do have to play Kansas. They don't have to play Kansas State, but still, I would say it's a pretty tough draw. And just having the 6 road games makes this schedule really tough. Let's get to the projections now. Again, just 3-9 last year. Our projection had them at 7-5. I picked them to go 7-5. Athlon picked them to go 7-5. The over/under was at 6.5, 7.5 in that range. So really, they were right there at 7-5 as well. And this team did not even come close to that. So let's get to the projections for 2024, and here's the scale that we use. We've talked about it in all the other videos. If you haven't been watching, go back and watch some of those, because we've done record projections here, schedule previews for almost every power team. We've only got a few left as we are winding this thing down. But let's get to these projections, and you've got one easy win against Tarleton State. Would be very surprised they lost that game. That should be a win. I'm going to put Air Force in the purple. I think they'll be favored by about a touchdown, but that is not going to be a guaranteed win. Air Force is a tough team to play, tough team to prepare for, coming off of a road game at Utah. So that's one that Baylor had better be careful with, because they could lose that one. And then you look at the 3 games where I think they're going to be a clear underdog: at Utah, Oklahoma State, and at West Virginia. Close to putting Kansas here, because Kansas is a tier above Baylor, but Kansas is kind of a tier 3 team, but they're in the bottom part of tier 3. Baylor's in the bottom part of tier 4, but Oklahoma State's a tier 3 team. Although the more I look at the Cowboys, I've actually got them maybe as a tier 2 team. So even though that game is at home, that is one that I think they'll be about a 6-point underdog in. Utah, West Virginia, probably a 7 or 8 point underdog in those two. And so those are the 3 games that I think are going to be really, really tough for Baylor. But they'll have a chance in the rest of their games. Probably won't win them all, but they'll have a chance. They've got, again, Colorado, BYU, Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU, Houston, and Kansas. So out of their 50-50 games, 4 of them are on the road, only 3 at home. If they went 3-4 in those games, and they beat Tarleton State and Air Force, that would only put them at 5-7. So that, to me, if I was doing this projection, I'd probably say about 5-7, and that might be closer to where my prediction is. But averages do play out here, and with Utah, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia, the averagers would say they're probably going to win one of those games. And when you do the math and do the formula, you actually get 6-6. So 6-6, the projected record for Baylor, enough to get to a bowl game, and definitely a big improvement from last year. I don't know if they can get there. Again, I haven't done predictions yet. We'll see when we get a little bit closer. But that is where the projection is. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Give me your thoughts on this team down in the comments below.